Full Metal Media presents Nostalgia Goggles. We've been gone for a long time. We've been on hiatus, but we're back. That's right. It's me, Jeremy the Atom Adams. Where have we been? Well, there's been some stuff going on, some trivia championships that have been put on, and some live events that people have gone to, and different things. But don't worry about any of that. We're back. We're bringing you the shows, and we're going to be back on track. So in case you don't know, this show is the show where we take a look back at movies we loved when we were a kid. I am a kid from the 80s, so I usually pick a movie from that era to talk about, and we look at it, talk about why we loved it when we were a kid, and see if it still holds up today. So, as always, my co-host with me today, he's fired up. He's ready to have another awesome discussion. He's been revving up over the last month that we've been on hiatus, just getting ready to get heated again. It's RJ, Renee Villarreal, the Red Ranger. How are we doing today, buddy?
Like you said, I'm happy to be back. Like you said, we've been busy with all this stuff. Me, not so much championship related stuff as you. I've just been waiting for you to be available. You are now available. We can get this done. I'm just ready. And especially this episode is a great one to come back to because both these movies are great, in my opinion.
Spoilers, but in any case.
Oh, spoilers.
So the way that what we do here was we usually pick a theme. We'll pick a theme of two or three movies that match that theme. The theme today is kind of a fun one. Basically, it's live action movies based on cartoon characters. Famous cartoon characters, they decided to make a live action movie out of them. So our special guest today kind of helped come up with this theme, and he is somebody that is a part of our crew. We love him. He's a recent winner of one of those aforementioned championships that we mentioned. He is Chance the Titan Ellison. He wanted to come on because there's one movie in particular that he nominated. Chance, how are you feeling to be on with us today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. This is my first time officially on as a guest. I'm usually here running the stream, but I'm glad I actually got to talk to movies this time. And yeah, I'm super excited to be back. I'm super happy to be back on the relaunch of Nostalgia Goggles. So I'm ready.
No one we'd rather have. So
awesome.
I kind of hinted at it. So the two movies we picked, usually we do a movie from the 80s and a movie from the 90s for RJ, but today a little different. Actually doing a movie from the 80s and a movie from the 2000s. I think this might be the first 2000s movie we've done, but
it is
a while ago now.
It is.
A lot of nostalgia for that period as well, so I think it totally fits. And so the two movies are, I picked 1980s Popeye. The movie that stars the great Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall, was directed by Robert Altman and is the live-action, big screen take on the famous character Popeye the Sailor. And then our good friend Chance nominated, again, not a 90s movie, from 2002, the live-action version of Scooby-Doo. That's right, by director Raja Gosnell, starring...
I mean, it's 90s enough. It's 90s enough.
And a bunch of big 90s stars you may know, like Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., Linda Cardellini, who we'll talk about later. I kind of have a crush on her. But anyway, those are the two movies we're talking about today. So let's get into it. The first part of the show that we do is what I call the why we picked it. So basically, it's just a short summary of why we picked the movie, how it relates to the theme, and just kind of easing into things. So again, I picked 1980s Popeye. Basically, that for me as a kid, we didn't have a lot of movies based on cartoon characters, certainly not live action movies. This was, like, for me, one of the only ones that we really had. And this was a movie that was big on video when I was a kid. It was something that you always saw in the video store. And even though it came out when I was just an infant in 1980, by the time you got to the mid-'80s and late 80s, this is a movie that was always around. And I think that it has, over the years, kind of gained a following. Some of you may know the critic Drew McQueenie. He's a big champion of this movie. And he's actually did on one of his podcasts, 80s All Over, he did a full commentary track on this movie. And it does have a fan base now. So for me, if you're talking about a live action, you got a great director like Robert Altman. You've got, a star like Robin Williams. This is a movie you have to talk about. And this is a movie, we'll get into it a little later, but it was very important to me growing up. So let's talk about our other movie. It was actually nominated by Chance. So Chance, if you can just tell us quickly why you were so excited to talk about 2002's Scooby-Doo.
When you first brought up the show, I tried to think of, movies that I watched as a kid. Because the whole theme of the show, it's a movie that you liked as a kid that wasn't necessarily great, but you liked it anyways, at least when you were that age. I was trying to think, and I was a big watcher of the cartoons when I was a kid, and one of my favorites was Scooby Doo. And I remember my mom got me the DVD like 2-pack with Scooby Doo and Scooby Doo 2, and I think Scooby Doo hit a little like when I was a kid. It hit a little it hit a little closer to home for me, just because me seeing a cartoon that I really admired since I was a kid in live action in big screen glory. So I think that's the reason I decided to go with this one.
Yeah, no, nostalgic for you, just like Popeye was with me. So
yeah, right.
So launching in, let's go into the next segment, which is what I call the nostalgia review. This is basically where you jump back to when you were a kid, when you first saw this movie, how you came to it, why you loved it as a kid, and basically try to put into words what a young version of yourself would say about the movie. So I'm going to hop over to RJ now. So you were very excited that Chance picked Scooby-Doo, and I think Scooby-Doo was an important movie for you. So if you want to give us a little background on how you came to Scooby-Doo and what this movie meant to you as a kid.
All right, so
me? Sorry, RJ.
No, RJ. We'll go to RJ, and then I'll come back to you, Chance.
So,
okay.
As a kid, this was after they were still coming out, but this was still post when Cartoon Network started doing the Scooby-Doo TV movies. You had Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, Scooby-Doo in the Cyber Chase, Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, which also big part of my childhood. I love all those movies up to a certain point, but like when they first started coming out, I was like, yes, Scooby-Doo like in a movie format. I love this, like a bigger mystery where it's like real, like the concept is real, like the monsters are real. It's not someone in a mask.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So and this kind of followed that, and like we said, it was a live action. So it was like, first of all, like, the CGI for the time. This is around that time where CGI really started taking off. So they took that chance on a cartoon character like Scooby-Doo. And we'll get to that later about that. But I mean, God, I had so much fun with it. It was just a big ball of fun because it was Scooby-Doo in the modern time. We were so used to the 60s and 70s Scooby-Doo. And like I said, the Scooby movies started that trend of bringing Scooby-Doo into modern times, bringing him into the current state. And that just took it to the next level. And I mean, talk about what we said off camera before, like the 90s royalty that is in this movie. Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred Jones, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne Blake, Matt Lillard, which, by no offense to Casey Kasem for doing the old voice back in the day, but Matt Lillard is my Shaggy. He killed it for me. That's exactly who Shaggy is and should be. And then the introduction of Linda Cardellini as Velma. Once again, I'll let Jeremy take that later. But for those of you who don't know, if you watch the MCU, Hawkeye's wife, that's Linda Cardellini. This was, I don't know if it was one of her big major motion pictures. First debut, only other movie I know her from is, at least off the top of my head, is Grandma's Boy, which I also find her super hilarious in. But she was great as Velma.
She had been in the thing that I knew her from before was Legally Blonde. She was in Legally Blonde. Yeah, not a leading role, but a memorable role. And then that kind of led to this. And of course, her big breakthrough was Freaks and Geeks on TV.
Exactly. Freaks and Geeks on TV. You should also. Yeah. That's what I couldn't think of. I was like, God, I know she has one big thing. Freaks and Geeks. But that cast just worked for me. It was perfect. Like Velma and Shaggy were exactly what I wanted them to be. And Freddie and Daphne were updated to a way that I could appreciate. I liked what they did with the characters. It was a little different from the TV show, but I liked what they did. And Scooby was hilarious to me, like exactly what I wanted Scooby-Doo to be like in real life. Big shout out to Sugar Ray for making an appearance in the movie. I was really into Sugar Ray as a kid. So them performing live in the movie. Oh, dude. And I love that song. That song is actually one of my favorites by them. So get up, and I'm gonna I love that song. So it was awesome to see them in the movie. But yeah, I mean the movie worked for me. It was great. As a kid, I couldn't wait to see it. I remember going to see it in theater. I believe
you
I
did.
also
so you would have been what about 9 or 10? You think?
2002. I was 10. I was 9 or 10, depending on what month it came out in. But I can't remember. But yeah, so I was that right age, like before puberty and all that stuff. I was still a kid. So, but
I
man,
think
it was just
this is the first. I think this is the first movie we've done that you actually saw in the theater, not just on home video. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, probably yeah, because I was so young in the '90s.
Yeah.
The actual '90s, I was so young that it was mostly VHS. This one I actually went to go see in theaters.
That's cool.
It was an awesome experience. I love it every time it comes on TV. I'll actually make time to watch it because that's how much I just enjoy it.
Yeah. If you had to put it in one line, what would 10-year-old RJ have said coming out of that movie theater?
10-year-old RJ coming out of that theater. It was it's gonna sound weird. Like this is in no reference to the movie. This is just at that age. I use the word righteous a lot, and that's what I would have said. Righteous. I would have been like, that movie was righteous.
That was righteous.
I
can imagine that. I'm imagining 10-year-old RJ in my mind now.
Yeah, like 10 to 13-year-old RJ for some reason was obsessed with the word righteous. Just love to use it.
Yeah, I've always liked saying rad myself, and that's definitely an 80s thing. All right,
Yeah,
so let's jump over. Exactly. So let's jump over to Chance. You kind of touched on it before, but how did you come to this movie? Like, how young do you think you were when you first saw it, and why did this mean so much to you growing up?
Well, I must have seen this. I remember seeing the second one in theaters, so I saw this one first, and I believe so. It was 2004. I think I saw it in 2004 right before I saw the second one. So I would have been about 6 at the time. And yeah, I mean, it was like it appealed to my sensibility as a child because you got the slapstick, you got the great cast, the colorful characters. I mean, like you said, Matthew Lillard, Freddie Prinze, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Linda Cardellini as these roles I had come to know and love. And I thought they were great. You get Rowan Atkinson. I didn't bring up Rowan Atkinson is in the movie.
Yeah.
And Rowan Atkinson, who was actually I thought was really entertaining in like a really creepy evil overlord type of way.
Yeah.
There's actually later in the movie where he dresses he dresses like Count Chocula if you raided Captain Crunch's wardrobe, which I thought was really funny. There's a twist they take towards the end of the movie, which I will get to later.
We're gonna spoil that. We're gonna spoil that later. I'm just gonna tell you now.
We'll spoil that later. But there's a twist. There's a twist in the movie that me as a kid, I was like, yes, thank you, good job. But yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, if you watch the show, there are little things that would reward your having watched the show and having known the characters.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was intense. I thought it was, kind of scary, kind of freaky, and it was what I wanted from my, my Scooby-Doo movies.
All right, perfect. Is there, like I said, RJ's? You think there's if very young 6-year-old Chance could have, said one sentence about this movie, what do you think he would have said?
I wasn't, into the whole '90s slang like RJ was, but I think it was something like, that was great, or that was super funny, and I can't wait for the sequel.
Yeah, that's not going to be bad.
That's not good. Right. Not good.
All right. Well, I'm going to try not to go on for a million years like I always do, but let's jump back to the 80s. So just a little background on me. For whatever reason, my absolute favorite cartoon character when I was a kid was Popeye the Sailor. I remember, for whatever reason, Popeye came back into vogue in the early 80s. There was a local television series where a guy played Popeye cartoons, and he would just play them all. He would narrate him. His name was Tom Hatton. He actually acted in a couple movies. He was in Spies Like Us with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. He's actually the villain in that movie. But this guy, he was kind of a local celebrity here in Southern California, and he had a show. He would introduce old movies, and then he would do Popeye cartoons. And I actually went to a live event in 1985, and I got to meet him, and he signed a picture of him and Popeye together and signed. It was probably my first celebrity autograph that I ever got, but I was obsessed. I still have my Popeye. I'm gonna have to get him before the end of the show, but I have a Popeye stuffed it figure that I've had since 1987. So, and I have a Popeye.
You're gonna have time. You're gonna have time by the end of the show.
Yeah, I have a Popeye mug as well that I got, I think, when I was 3 or 4. So those cartoons always meant a lot to me, and I was probably like around the same age as you know, with Scooby-Doo. Chance, I was probably 5 or 6 the first time I saw Popeye, Robert Altman's film. It's hard to remember like my first viewing or whatever, but I just remember, you know, seeing the movie. I remember rewatching the movie, and I just remember it always it just there. I think the movie sets it up perfectly because the movie actually begins with this like black and white cartoon, and you have the old Popeye with I think it's actually the voice actor that had done him in the most recent run of cartoons, like from the 60s. And it's like,
I think
where
you're right.
am I?
I think you're right.
This is one of Bluto's tricks. I'm in the wrong movie. And then all of a sudden it cuts to like this kind of dark, brooding image of the ocean, and it's a lightning storm, and it's got the opening credits, and eventually you see Popeye rowing in. And I just thought that was perfect because it was like it was paying homage to the old cartoons, but at the same time it had a kind of a more real world kind of feel to it. And I was always on board with that. I always felt like this was Popeye, and this was who Popeye was, but it was something different. It was you know, it was a live action, it was a different take on it, and I was just always in. So yeah, this movie, like I said, it was directed by Robert Altman, who is known for these artistic sort of movies, these award-winning movies that he did in the 70s. He was one of the important auteurs of the American 1970s cinema, and he had decided, I want to do something different. I want to do something for the kids. You know, he had grandkids at this point, and they decided to do this Disney movie, and it was this Popeye movie, which is a co-production between Disney Studios and Paramount. One of the few times that ever happened. And they went to an island in Malta. They turned this whole island into the town of Sweet Haven, which is this island that Popeye finds in the movie. All the crazy town folks are there. I think the set design and everything in that movie is really amazing at kind of creating this kind of off-kilter, cartoony world, but it still feels real at the same time. The movie's a musical. There's a lot of songs that were written by Harry Nilsson, who was actually brought onto the project by Robin Williams. And I should note this is Robin Williams' big screen debut, or at least as a star. He had done like a cameo in something before, but this was his first starring role. And I just the kind of the off-kilter approach Robert Altman took with it, the way that he made the movie. There's a lot of kind of a hallmark of his filmmaking is overlapping dialogue. Like there'll be people talking over each other and a lot of like chaos and stuff going on. And I think that really fit the Popeye aesthetic, and I was always into it. I always loved the music. Just as a kid, I was like, this is Popeye, and this is like, I almost feel like I can go there. I can go be there in Sweet Haven, and I can hang out with Popeye, and I can go on a journey with him. And it always spoke to me. One little thing that I have to note is that back in the 80s, you would watch movies on TV, and movies would be heavily edited for television because they would have to fit like a time frame. So it'd be like, we have 2 hours to air a movie. So they would edit movies. So Popeye was edited to fit the 2-hour time slot, and I taped it off TV. So I had the edited TV version of Popeye, and I watched it over and over. And that was actually, they took 20 minutes out of the movie, and it took out 2 of the best songs, in my opinion, which are I Mean, the Bluto song, and Sailing, which is kind of the nursery rhyme song that Popeye and Olive Oyl sing together. Yeah, so they hacked a big chunk out of it. And then when I started renting it, seeing it on an actual home video, I was like, oh, wait, this is the real, like there's stuff missing here. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. But I always enjoyed even the shortened version. I enjoyed it. And I just think of that when we start really getting into it, we're going to talk about Robin Williams, and we're going to talk about how great he was even at this point in his career, just starting out, and what he brought to this role. And in my mind, he kind of makes this movie. And you can't talk about Popeye without talking about Robin Williams. So I think young Jeremy seeing this movie would have said, you know, it's Popeye the Sailor Man. He's there. He's so awesome. You finally, you know, this is an origin story. So you get to see how he finally discovers his love of spinach. And I would have said, like, he eats a spinach and his arm gets all big and he kicks butt. This is Popeye. It's so great. And I probably would have said, I love this Robin Williams guy. I want to see him in more movies. So that probably would have been what young Jeremy would say. So moving on to the next section. The next section we're going to say is what I call taking the nostalgia goggles off. This is probably the most painful part of the show, but now we're going to have to take a look back at our movie with current eyes and kind of give if we saw our movie that we nominated or that we picked for the first time today, what would we actually say about this movie? Would we still love it like we did as a kid, or would we have a different opinion? So since he kind of got the whole episode rolling, I'm going to go to Chance. So Chance, I got to ask you, take the nostalgia goggles off and tell me, if you saw 2002 Scooby-Doo for the first time, what do you think you would say about this movie here in 2018?
Time's a funny thing, because things can change for you or anything else over time. You could see something completely different. When I was a kid, I thought the first Scooby-Doo movie was pretty good. I watch it now and I realize this movie freaking sucks. Like, God, this movie is bad. Like, it's really bad. Like, oh my God, it's like so many things. Like first of all, you start off in the movie at like the very end of a Scooby-Doo episode. And it's like, they're trying to get like all these jokes out of it, which could have filled the whole movie, but they're wasting it in these first 2 minutes, and then they're broken up within like the first 10 minutes. The crew split up, and it's like, wait, what? Huh? Why? That doesn't make any sense. And then okay, we gotta talk about the CGI on Scooby, man. This came out the same year as Two Towers. And that had Gollum in. That is still one of the best CG characters of all time. And this thing came out the same year? Like, Roger Rabbit is better integrated than Scooby-Doo, and you're supposed to know he's not really there. Like, it's ridiculous. And also, we forgot to mention someone. Isla Fisher is in this movie. This is one of her very first big screen roles. And she plays a character. Oh my God. She plays a character named. How can you forget? She plays a character named Mary Jane. Mary Jane.
And Shaggy's in love with Mary Jane. It might kind of tie into tie into some Shaggy theories.
Oh God. Oh yeah. No shit. But yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing where like they come to this island to investigate like the supernatural thing, which in the show they very clearly established that ghosts are not real. It's always someone behind the curtain. But no, supernatural shit's real in this universe
until those TV movies that RJ was talking about. Yeah.
Until TV movies where they literally fight the internet and other shit like that. Don't get me started. But moving on. So yeah, we find out that they brought in Rowan Atkinson's bringing in like teens in and like brainwashing them to like behave or whatever. I don't even know what his fucking plan was. But you find that out through like this riot. And there's like this instructional video for like the teaching teens how to act, and like you watch it, it's like, who talks like this? Who would fall for this? No, Rowan Atkinson. No. And then okay, I'm gonna spoil the twist right now because it is a joke. It is a joke that I hit my head against the wall over how they could not make this work. There's like a very like brief scene. There's a very like brief scene where he's like a flashback to when they're all crewed together, and we see the most hated character in Scooby-Doo lore, Scrappy-Doo. Yep. Scrappy-Doo is in this movie. Like the scene's like super short, and it's super short. Scrappy's doing his thing, and then they do what all of us wanted to do when we saw Scooby-Doo the cartoon. They kick him out of the car. Which that's really out of character. I'm like, why would Scooby let that happen? That doesn't make any sense. But like that scene is just like super short and it doesn't add to anything. So you're just like, oh God, no, he's not the villain. You're like, no. Then you get to the end, you find out Rowan Atkinson, he's a robot, and inside him, it's pretty much a mecha suit for Scrappy-Doo. You're just like, oh my God, seriously, how could they not make this work? It's baffling just how much shit goes wrong in this movie. And yeah, like this movie is garbage. Roger Gosnell, I've never he's not a good director like at all. He has like one good movie under his belt as far as I'm concerned.
Home Alone 3, that classic?
Home Alone is the classic Home
Alone. Screw you guys! I love Home Alone 3. Screw you guys!
He does love Home Alone 3. That's right.
We'll get to that later. But yeah, no, Roger Gosnell, I think the problem with Roger Gosnell is that he treats kids like they're stupid, and he throws in a bunch of stupid slapstick, a bunch of like completely just ignores character in this movie, especially like established characters that we come to know and love over just like tons of cartoons, and he just like it's essentially like ignoring all of that lore we've come to know. So yeah, this movie is garbage.
Mm. Do you not enjoy it now when you watch it today? Like, do you enjoy it like on a campy level or anything, or you just think it's just bad?
No, you know what? If it had tried something like, you've seen the Brady Bunch movie, right?
Yeah, big fan.
If it had taken, yeah, like that's a good movie because they take the approach of like they try to make a satire of what the show was. But this isn't that. Like all the satire of what Scooby-Doo was, they get that out in the first few minutes, and from that they just go in their completely different direction. Had they done what like the Brady Bunch movie did, and they just like kept these jokes going throughout the entire movie, like that would have been cool. That would have been funny. I would have liked that a lot. But yeah, no. As the movie stands, right now, it sucks. It's structured just super poorly. But I will say some positives though. Like RJ, I think Matthew Lillard's performance as Shaggy still really stands out. Like I think he did a really good job, like taking that character and like making it his own. Like Matthew Lillard was like, it's like he was born to play Shaggy because like he's played Shaggy in just about like Scooby-Doo cartoons since these movies came out.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
and like you said, Linda, when she was becoming a thing, she like completely like transformed herself as Velma. I'm pretty sure Freaks and Geeks came out before this.
Yep.
And
That
yeah,
was
she
her
just
debut.
completely completely like transformed herself as Velma. I thought that was really impressive. They find some stupid shit to do with her. Like they literally just get her in like a mini skirt and a halter top in the middle of the movie for no reason. Which they later expand on.
I think it's for a reason, but
it's for a reason. Well, it's for a reason. It's not a good one. But I know Jam is probably very happy at that moment. But yeah, no, the two of them are really good, and occasionally you can get there's some really creative set designs. Sometimes it'll be just way too much, but yeah, there's some set design elements that I think are pretty creative, and Isla Fisher's trying. Actually, everyone's trying in this movie. They're just given just like nothing to work with.
All right. Well, unfortunately, Chance's love for this movie didn't hold up for him in adulthood. But let's see what RJ has to say. I think he kind of hinted at it earlier, but I think RJ might have different feelings about this movie watching it now in 2018. RJ, what do you think now at the age that you are? What do you think when you watch 2002 Scooby-Doo?
Okay, first of all, if you're gonna complain about a plot, no, they are not brainwashing the teens. The teens are being possessed by monsters. That's what the instructional videos are for the monsters to learn how to behave like teenagers.
Did they fail?
You don't even know.
He didn't act like that, so what? They can't be learning shit.
Anyways, yeah, I mean, obviously, there are things in this movie that the biggest thing in this movie that does not hold up is the animation. Scooby-Doo himself, Scrappy-Doo, the monsters, no, they do not hold up. That animation, like he said, this came out at the same time as Gollum, Dobby. These, like, when CGI was taking over and people were starting to realize how great it had become, I'm guessing Scooby-Doo just didn't get the budget, but we're also comparing it to Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Of course, Scooby-Doo did not get the budget that those two movies had. So,
although I will say maybe in a weird way you could look at that.
You had your time to talk.
No, I'm trying to defend it. I'm trying to defend it.
No, it is my turn.
Order.
You did all your shitting. It is my turn to talk.
RJ's fired up, Chance. You got RJ mad. You got to let him go, buddy.
Fine. Go ahead.
All right. I actually don't mind the campiness of this movie because to me, I don't see it as trying to take itself seriously. So the slapstick and everything kind of works for me. Like it's still to this day. I mean, they did what Scooby-Doo was in the cartoon. They just made this a big cartoon episode in my mind. Like, granted, they added the complex story of having them break up and having to come back together, which I actually kind of liked. I had always wondered that, like, what would happen if they broke up and had to reunite? Like, because let's be honest, they're more adult here, at least. I'm assuming they're supposed to be what they look like, and they're supposed to be like in their 20s now. They're not supposed to be teenagers anymore.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Arj. Do you think that this basically is kind of a sequel to the series, isn't it? Like the series happens,
Yeah, but like this,
and this is later on. So I mean, they're kind of banking off of our knowledge of these characters, pre-existing knowledge. So that's kind of probably why they made some of those choices.
Exactly. Like well, I mean, they took a lot of liberties to me, like I said earlier, with Fred and Daphne.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't bother me as much. I like that they did the whole women empowerment thing with Daphne. You know, she was always the damsel in distress. We all remember the cartoon. Daphne was always the one that fell into the traps and went missing. So I like that they went off of that. And Fred, I love. I don't know why. I love what they did with Fred. I don't know how Freddie Prinze Jr. feels about it, but if I ever met him, which I hope I do one day, because he's like one of my favorite people who ever comes by Collider and the Schmodown.
Involved with the Schmodown.
Like, I love his Fred. I don't know why. Just something about his Fred works for me. It's hilarious.
I imagine he got cast just.
What did I say? What did I just say? What did I just say?
I love
this. I was quiet the entire time. My turn to talk.
I'm sorry.
But no, I can't. I can't. Like I said, besides the animation, I can't find any other flaws with it. Because for me, it is what it is. It's an overproduced Scooby-Doo episode, and for me, like the Scrappy thing. Bring on the comments. I don't mind it as much as everyone else does. Everyone shits on the fact that Scrappy-Doo ended up being the villain, and I was kind of like, what's the problem with it? Like, I don't see a problem. I get people's concerns, but they're not mine. I don't have those same problems with it. I don't mind what they did. I think it's a little off character. They kind of dialed him up a little too much. But in reality, people always hated Scrappy-Doo, so why wouldn't you want him to be the villain so you could just have more of a reason to hate him? Like, I feel like that's a reason to make him.
How'd you feel he made the second Red movie?
You don't like him anyways. I honestly, I saw the second movie once and it was terrible. I don't even remember it. I really don't. I don't remember anything about that movie. But yeah, it was like I said, I watched it. Once again, like I said, Sugar Ray, I can't get mad at Sugar Ray coming in and performing during it. Like I said, it's like a Scooby-Doo episode. Like every Scooby-Doo episode, we had a song. And actually a very good song. I wish like there was a soundtrack of all the Scooby-Doo songs that played during the cartoon.
Oh yeah.
A lot of those songs I love. I don't know if they're like actually real or anything, but I love them.
Yep.
But yeah, and then like Chance said, once again, Matt Lillard is my Shaggy. Like I said, no offense to Casey Kasem, but Matt Lillard is my Shaggy. Like he nailed it. He was born to play it. I'm glad that guy gets a paycheck every day doing something that he was born to do. And Linda Cardellini killed it as Velma too. Like Velma could have easily been overdone, and I think she did it really well for what they were going for in the movie. And the body switching scene is probably my favorite scene in that entire movie. Like,
I could look at myself naked.
Exactly. Like that's probably not something we should be finding hilarious, but it was. Like at the time as a kid, you're like, you could. You totally could. There was, and then of course watching Freddie Prinze Jr. walk around with a purse, like pretending to have Daphne in his body was like I said, for some reason I love Freddie Prinze Jr.'s acting in this movie. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I like Freddie Prinze Jr. I don't know, but yeah. Other than the animation stuff, some plot lines were unnecessary. Daphne with the luchador, that was weird. I don't know why it had to be a luchador, but whatever.
Yeah, it's so weird. Where is this island again? I can't remember.
I don't
know that I ever knew.
I assume off some Mexican coast. Like,
gotta be. That's the only reason there could be a luchador there.
Considering the time frame and everything, I mean, that's where teenagers go to vacation. They go to Cancun. They go to Acapulco. They like at this time, those were still like the like spring break spots. Like those were where kids wanted to go. That's where you went on vacation to party and have a great time and go crazy. You went down south. So that's why I assume we're off the coast of Mexico somewhere. But yeah, I have nothing else bad to say about this movie.
Still love the movie. That's cool.
I still love it.
All right. So it's my turn now to take the nostalgia goggles off and talk about Popeye. And I feel like for the first time doing this show, I'm gonna fail both as a host and as somebody doing my job in this show, because the first thing I want to say is that this movie, it was a big production. Like I said, Disney was involved. When it came out, it hit like a lead balloon. This movie, I mean, it made some money in the box office, but for the most part, the critics savaged it. It didn't really catch on. It was considered a bomb, and I think most damningly, like Robin Williams didn't like it. He felt like, it was a failure, to kind of launch his career, and he like notoriously always disliked the movie. And you can talk about issues with the movie, like, this was, an auteur director who had never done a movie for kids trying to make one. And it's got kind of an odd, sort of shambling quality to it. Like I said, with the people talking over each other, and it's a little strange. There's some weird in the design on Popeye. Like they used like yak fat to create his bulging forearms like they were in the cartoons. I think that is a little weird, maybe a little off-putting for people, that design sometimes. And just the whole kind of vibe of the movie it's not like any other movie, and it's a little strange, and I think it's kind of off-putting. I've known people, I've met a lot of people. I know a couple people in our fan community here that think this movie just didn't work, that it missed the mark, that it was, just like, Robin Williams said, it was a failure and whatever. But I'm telling you, I watched this movie now, and I'm 5 years old again. I love this movie. It's really hard for me to take the nostalgia goggles off with this one. It's nearly impossible, because I love this movie. I just think it may be because I've seen it so many times. I appreciate all the little details. I appreciate all the design of the sets, the costumes, the performance. These were actors from the stage, and they basically got into their characters and said, well, what if I was this character, lived in this island, and I'm like a character from a comic strip? And they did a lot of physical things. Even the minor characters that don't really have lines, they had full backstories for their characters. They had physical mannerisms and traits that they developed side of their character. There's a genius actor named Bill Irwin. You would know him. He's in a lot of movies. But he was an actual a clown and a contortionist. Like, he had all these skills. And you see he plays the guy who's just kind of the wacky guy. And in the beginning opening musical sequence of the movie, he's like, he keeps losing his hat, and his hat's being blown by wind, and he's like trying to catch it, and he keeps missing it. And it's like, just that little bit of business that Bill Irwin designed, it shows you how much care and detail went into this movie, into creating this kind of wacky cartoon yet sort of real world. And I just love the movie. I think the songs are odd. They're kind of shabby, but they're just so likable. They're just kind of catchy in a very basic way. And I think they perfectly build this world from the first song, Sweet Haven, when you hear their little anthem that they start every day with on this island. Then We the People of Sweet Haven. And it's kind of like a little bit negative, like, our life is mud and God just kind of stranded us here and our life kind of sucks, but whatever, we're making the best of it and we're going to sing a song about it every day. It just perfectly creates this wacky mood for this movie. And the songs, the visuals of it, everything, like it is very physical. Everything was built on sets. They didn't have like computer graphics or animation or anything like that. They had to build all this stuff. All of the effects that you see are practical effects, and I think they're just some really wonderful stuff. One of the standout moments in this movie is there's a scene where Popeye and Olive Oyl find the baby. They find Sweet Pea, the baby. Yeah, and they bring him to this party, this wedding party that's been going on for Olive and Bluto that Olive escaped from. And when they go to the door and open the door, Bluto's standing there, and he's already been mad because he knows he's been jilted by Olive Oyl. And he looks out and he sees this stranger Popeye with Olive Oyl and the two of them holding a baby. And he closes his eyes and he's angry and he opens his eyes and everything is red. Like Popeye, everything is red. Well, they painted everything red. They painted the door red. They painted their clothes red. They painted it. They had to create that shot just for that one image. And I just think it's that kind of care and detail that went into the production of this movie that makes it really unique. When you talk about like comic book movies or comic strip movies or movies based on cartoons, there's something really unique in this movie that's so hand built and so lovingly crafted. But the main thing, I think this movie, I would say it separates it a little bit from something like Scooby-Doo, is I think this movie has tremendous heart to it. This is the story. There's wonderful little details. Like Popeye, you find out the reason he came to this town is because he's trying to find his dad, who abandoned him basically when he was a little baby. And he's sitting, like, he's staying at the Olive Oils like hotel, and he's he puts a hammock over the bed. He's sleeping in a hammock in the bedroom, which I thought was just a wonderful detail. Like, this guy's never really slept in rooms. He's always been at sea, and being in a hammock would be more natural for him than sleeping in a bed. So he's in a hammock, and he's talking to a picture, and he's like talking to his dad, and he's like, I'm gonna find you, I know you're here, I love you, Papa, and everything. And then he goes to put the picture up, and you see that all it is a frame that he wrote me Papa on. It's just, how can you not love that character? There's just something so wonderful and sweet about that. And Popeye is such a sweet character. After he adopts Sweet Pea, the way that he takes care of Sweet Pea, and there's a little bit, even though it's kind of a realistic story, there's a little bit of a supernatural thing where Sweet Pea can kind of see the future. He's got like this prophecy gift, and he can help them like win gambling, like anything gambling. Like the baby knows how to predict stuff. So they take Olive Oil and everyone take the baby, and they're using him to win at gambling. And Popeye takes him back, and he's like, "No, you're not going to use this my child for this." And there's just such a strength and an authenticity and a morality to this character that I think is true to who he is. And Robin Williams is so genius. The physicality, the warmth, the voice, everything that he does in creating this character is just great. And I love his performance. I think Shelley Duvall is genius. Like, no one else could play Olive Oil. It's like the character came right out of the cartoon, out of the comics, and she just is so great. Wonderful supporting cast. You have Paul L. Smith as Bluto. He's actually terrifying, but really great as this menacing bully who's running this town. You've got Paul Dooley as Wimpy, a great actor. He was in a lot of Altman movies. I think he's genius. But for me, next to Robin Williams, my favorite in this movie is actually Ray Walston. Ray Walston was a great stage performer. He was in a musical from the 50s called Damn Yankees. He's an actor that everyone would recognize. Probably his biggest claim to fame came a little later with Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He played Mr. Hand, who is Sean Penn's teacher in the high school, and Spicoli's teacher, who's always battling with him. But he plays Pappy. When he eventually does find him, you find out that Pappy's actually the mysterious Commodore who's running the town, and this is Popeye's dad. And at first, he doesn't accept Popeye, and they're at odds. And he's got the same eyes, he's got the same arms, and he's just a genius performance. And I just think there's so much in this movie that I love. Is it perfect? No. Do I understand why it didn't hit with people at the time? Do I understand why it still has haters? Yes. But I think it's a movie with a tremendous heart. It's got great music. It's got great performances. It's got great visuals. And it's something that is really unique and genuine. And there's no movie really like it. So I had to have a show where I talked about Popeye because it's really one of my favorites. So, all right, I'm done. Cut myself short here. Moving on to the next segment, which is we'll try to keep things going a little quicker here, but I call this segment Mr. Nice Guy. So this is where you have to talk about the other guy's movie, the movie that the other person nominated, and you can only say nice things. So if you have nice things to say about Popeye, anything positive you want to say, I'll give you your moment here. I'll go ahead and start with Chance on this one again. So Popeye, what do you have to say about this movie? Are there things you like about it?
Quick fact check: Is there ever been a time on Nostalgia Goggles where there's been like a guest to say nothing nice about either movie?
There have been times RJ.
I have said nothing.
Yeah, there have been multiple times when RJ said nothing not positive.
Okay. Well,
I said nothing positive. You can choose not to say anything positive. That is an option.
You can be quiet if you want, Chance. Doesn't matter.
one of those.
Yeah,
Hello?
they're there.
Okay. This is not going to be one of those times because I hadn't seen Popeye in like many, many years. I remember really liking it as a kid, but I just want to see how it held up. And yeah, I'm surprised at how much, like, coming back to this, I really enjoy this movie. I think Jeremy hit it on the head. Like, I think the reason I like the movie so much, I like the movie, is because they put that, you can clearly tell there's some great TLC put into this thing.
Yes.
Like everybody, like nobody's phoning this in, nobody's half-assing this. Everyone's giving it their all. Robin Williams, I think, is great as Popeye. I mean, it's like this is his first leading role. What, am I correct?
It was his first leading role, and he was only 28 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
It was his first theatrical
This is kind of him
role.
coming in, showing you,
Yeah.
like, this is him showing like what he can do as an actor. I mean, he show like his he can show like his physicality, the way he can change his voice, just the speed of how he can act. The dude was a great actor, and I think this was the genesis of that. And we only saw him take that further and further roles, but I think this is where this all started, and he was so great. This is the Shelley Duvall. I like his movie. The only movie where I've actually liked Shelley Duvall.
Oh, really?
And yeah, not a fan. And I love The Shining, but Shelley Duvall, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like every actor to play like a small character is great. The whole dynamic between Popeye and Sweet Pea is awesome. The songs, man. I love Bluto singing about I'm mean.
I'm mean.
That was great. And like you can clearly tell like this was like a labor of love for someone who just wanted to make, like, this was a great introspective look on Popeye, and this great look like how this would work brought to the real world. I love the set design. I mean, I thought the set design of this movie was really, really impressive, and I like the whole like origin story aspects.
It is an origin story.
We get to see how his love of spinach. We get to see like him like meeting Bluto and olive oil and all these people. And yeah, I think it's really fun. Like this is a really fun movie. I think for the most part, it really holds up. There's some things that are very clearly dated, but overall, I think people should revisit this one. It's a really enjoyable film.
Awesome. And then let's go to RJ. What do you have things that are positive you can say about 1980s Popeye?
I mean, we had talked about this before when I told you. I mean, I am surprised how much I like this movie. I found this movie. This is one of those, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Movie Channel, that horrible
TMC.
TMC
I remember
that
TMC.
comes with Showtime when you buy it.
Yeah.
So this was one of those late night movies that just happened to be on, and I was like, "This is a thing." And I saw Robin Williams name on it, and I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Okay." There are only two actors that I truly respect for their Popeye impersonations. And that's Robin Williams
Dave Coulier.
and
Dave Coulier.
Dave Coulier.
So good.
They are the only two men I respect for their Popeye impersonations. So as soon as I saw Robin Williams' name on it, I was like, I have to know what this is. Like, I need to know what this is. And luckily, I barely missed it. Like, I literally came in maybe halfway through the Sweet Haven song.
Okay, cool.
First part. Like, I've actually seen it from beginning to end now, but this is the first time I saw it. And first of all, as soon as Robin Williams opens his mouth, or rather not really opens his mouth, more mumbles, to me, that's what he has down on point for Popeye is the mumbling, the little ad-libbing he does. I mean, that for anything shows Robin Williams' skill to be able to do something like that, like on the fly, just get into a character and know how that character will react to a situation.
His timing
exactly.
of how he reacts with other characters is just so perfect to that character.
Exactly. It was great. And and the way he has the walk down, it just looks like straight out of the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
I loved those cartoons back in the day. Like, as a little kid, once again, staying up really late, Popeye was on at like 3 o'clock in the morning on Cartoon Network. Like, it would be 30 minutes of Popeye, of a bunch of shorts. And I loved Popeye, and it was cool seeing this origin story to it, to before he discovered the power of spinach. And I really like what they did with him and olive oil, with them at odds first, because we only knew olive oil as his sweetheart. Mm-hmm. We had never seen this side of it to where Olive wanted, like, there were some shorts where like Pluto and Olive are vying for her feelings at the same time. But to really see like their relationship grow was really nice to see. I mean, as much as I'm kind of the same way, Shelley Duvall, she's kind of hit and miss with me on the things I've seen her in. Still haven't seen The Shining. Once again, bring on the hate, whatever. I know that's what a lot of people give her crap about. But she was fine in that role. The spoiled brat thing was weird, but I guess we'll get into that in the hating thing. Like, I never really saw her as that in the cartoon, but whatever. Mm. But Bluto was cool. He didn't really talk a lot, but whatever, he worked. The story of why he came to find his father was really nice. Thank you for telling me where I've actually seen.
You didn't know. You didn't know he lost him. That's cool.
I knew his face, and I couldn't pull it. Like I couldn't pull where I knew him from. But now it's one of those things of like, oh yeah, duh. But yeah, it worked. The songs are really sweet and cute. I love them all. They're all really nice. And then God, I know another actor I saw in it. Oxblood.
Yeah, Oxblood, Oxheart. Yeah.
Yeah, Oxblood, Oxheart.
I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He was in a few things, but yeah, that plotline's really fun.
I knew him from another movie called The Wanderers. It's really
oh wow, Ken Wall movie.
Yeah,
nice pull,
really off the map gangster movie, which I really only like for the gigantic gang fight that happens at the end of that movie. That's brutal ass. With the don't fuck with the Wongs.
I always heard the Wanderers was like the gritty real world version of the Warriors. That's what I always heard about the Wanderers.
Yeah.
It's crazy out there. But anyways, to get back on topic, that's where I recognized him from. And then, like you said, like just seeing Robin Williams in his prime is awesome. Just seeing him at the start and really just going for it. And this is one of those things where it's like, it's one of my favorite ones of his movies, at least comedy-wise. Drama-wise, they'll always be Bicentennial Man.
Oh, yeah.
But
What?
Yeah, my favorite drama of his is Bicentennial Man. I love that movie.
I thought he was joking for a second chance, but whatever. Moving on.
Yeah, no, I thought he was joking.
I expected you to say Good Will Hunting or Dead Poet Society, but all right, Bicentennial Man. Right.
Well, because those he's a supporting lead. Like, I'm talking about lead, him, center focus, Bicentennial Man. But, because, yeah, you know I love Dead Poet Society. I think we've talked about that. But, yeah, it was really nice to see that. And this is one of those things, like, because it surprises me what you say about that. Because I've always realized there are a lot of actors where, like, movies they hated being in, I love.
Yeah.
And, man, he was gone too soon because he is, like, you know, when everyone talks about, if you could talk about an actor and everything, I would love to have sit down with Robin Williams and just talk about it with him. Just talk with him about this movie. Like, as much as he may not want to talk about it, like, not bombard him with the fact that I love it, but just really act like, what about it did you really not like? Like, what is it about it when you see it that you're just like, I wish I hadn't done it? Like,
yeah, if he could just get a little bit of that sense of what that movie meant to me and what that movie meant to you and how that performance touched us. Like the scene where Sweet Pea is kidnapped by Bluto and he sings that song, you know, to Sweet Pea and Sweet Pea's on the boat. I mean, that is just so wonderful and emotional. It gets me like I tear up every time. It's like if we could have just told him what that meant to us. Like this is what, and it's not just this movie, so many movies that he did where it's like stuff that he did touched people so much. I mean, I don't know if he knew it or if it registered.
Yeah, and like I said, I think because critically people don't talk about Popeye enough, and that's why he didn't know that. But like, I wish I could. That would be one of the things of like, you know, if the actors you could talk to, someone who's gone just to talk to him about something, I would want to talk to Robin Williams about Popeye.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so now it's my turn. I have to talk about Scooby-Doo, and I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I'm sorry, Chance, but I like this movie. I've always liked this movie. I think this movie is fun. I'm just going to kind of echo what RJ said. You can't take it that seriously. Like, they didn't take it that seriously. It was just kind of, it's kind of like they're following up the show. Yeah, the show's been happening, and now we're thrown into this adventure with these guys, and they have a little breaking apart at the beginning. They get back together later, and it's just kind of a little bit of a shabby plot. You know, you just kind of roll with it. There's a lot of gags, you know, kind of, you know, there's a lot of like sight gags and stuff along sequences like that along the way. And it's just, I just think for me, a movie, I have to talk about a movie that came out that hit me hard, that for whatever reason is just a movie that I've always loved, was, I don't know if people are going to make fun of me, but it's 2001's Josie and the Pussycats. This was, I've always been a fan of the Archie comics, and this was a movie came out 2001, which is an update of Josie and the Pussycats, which was a 60s cartoon that was on at the same time as the original Scooby-Doo. It was also a comic book in the Archie universe. And that movie to me was just such a fun, it's that early 2000s trendy pop stuff, lots of gags, making fun of NSYNC and boy bands and Britney Spears and stuff from that era. But at the same time, it's this kind of comic booky thing. And I just thought that movie had a wonderful tone of it's silly. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's got an over the top villain with some crazy plan that doesn't make any sense. And yet everyone's having fun. All of the like it was a breakthrough role for Rosario Dawson, who just is having so much fun in that movie. And I just love that. And I think Scooby-Doo for me kind of continued the spirit of that movie, where it was, it's really mired in a lot of pop culture of that time period, the early 2000s. So many references that kids today probably don't even get, but it's fun. And we're taking this older thing and we're going to do it now. And we're going to kind of do it in a way that's now, but we're still going to try to homage the old stuff too. And it's a fun movie. And for me, it's all about, Scooby-Doo looks like crap. The animation doesn't work. But for me, the movie it doesn't harp on that too much. For me, the movie's heart is really in the performances of Matthew Lillard and Linda Cardellini and Sarah Michelle Gellar. Like, that's really what the movie is for me, is these really talented actors. They probably like Scooby-Doo, and this was a fun thing for them to do. And they're just having fun, and they're playing these characters. And, what they did, I think Linda Cardellini, I knew her before this. I'd seen Legally Blonde, but when I saw her in this movie, it was
I had a big, God, that's right.
Yeah, and I had a crush on her much the way that I had a crush on Rachel Lee Cook and Josie and the Pussycats. Like, I'm just like, this is a character that I know being played by a very talented, beautiful actress, and she's got to take on this character, and it's just so much fun. And I just think they knew like that she was going to be a thing. I think they knew that a lot of guys were going to kind of really like her. So I think the mini skirt stuff and the little gags that they do with her later on, I think that was intentional. And I think that, at least at the time it played pretty well. And I think they knew what they were doing. And that stuff, I can't help but enjoy those scenes. And I just, I've always, it's definitely, she's in a top of my characters that I have a crush on in movies. Like, Velma, as played by Linda Cardellini, is a movie crush for me. And I think Sarah Michelle Gellar's great. Like, she was Buffy at this time. Buffy was on the air, and I think she was bringing, some of that spirit to this, but in kind of a fun, loose, comical way. I think it's a lot of fun. I think Freddie Prinze Jr. is very funny. I think that he's basically playing an airhead, and he was really good at that. He's played. Yeah, and I think it's a lot of fun. But the best performance. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish.
But I think the best performance is Matthew Lillard. I think Matthew Lillard is really if this movie works, it's largely because of him. I think he makes the Scooby-Doo stuff work because you believe that he has a friendship with Scooby-Doo, even though it's this crappy looking CG. I think Matthew Lillard makes it work just because he's so good and he's so real as Shaggy that you kind of buy into it. And I'll get into, we're going to do the open forum and I'll get into some, issues with the movie, but I just think it's a fun movie. It is a movie that's just light and fun and frothy, and it does silly stuff. And I kind of got on board with the silly stuff. Like you, RJ, I was on board with the scrappy stuff because it's like, I watched Scooby-Doo in the 80s, and they would play all the 60s cartoons, the 70s cartoons, and there was a whole thing where, God, I pray to God they're playing one of the 60s ones and not one of the Scrappy-Doo ones. Please, God, let this not be a Scrappy-Doo episode. And every time it was a Scrappy-Doo episode, it's like, crap, because we didn't have video. Like, they would just play stuff on TV.
Exactly.
So you would just be watching on TV, oh, no, it's a Scrappy one. Damn it. So for me, that was fun. The villain is Scrappy-Doo because he was the villain for Scooby-Doo fans, really. Like, he was the cousin Oliver of Scooby-Doo. So is it silly? Is it dumb? Yeah. But for me, I thought it was always because this is a silly, dumb movie. And I think it wasn't trying to be anything more than that. And I really enjoyed the film. I do have to say I never saw the sequel. I've seen parts of it, but this one on its own, I always kind of had a good time with. So let's jump to our next section, which is what I call the open forum. And this is where we're just kind of open up our thoughts and really kind of talk about the other guy's movie. We're not hampered now. We can be critical. We can be negative. So I'm going to jump over to Chance now. Is there, you want to talk about some of the more critical parts about Popeye? Just kind of be a little more open and honest about any thoughts that you have.
Yeah, I do like the movie, but it's not without its fault. I mean, it is a little over. What's the runtime of this movie? Like
it's 114 minutes. It's an hour and 54 minutes. So yeah, it's nearly 2 hours.
It's nearly 2 hours.
Yeah,
but I mean, the movie can be a little uneven, at least. For me, tonally, and tonally, it can be a little uneven for me, and I think anybody can agree on that. And also, the script itself. Like, if you just take away if you try to visualize the script and the lines minus the actors, the script itself is it's not very good. It's like the script itself is it's not what makes me funny. It's the delivery of these actors. These actors make the script. Like you can give this script to if you given the script to, like any other crowd of actors, this movie would have just completely fallen on its face.
Yeah.
But you needed you needed that cast to make this script. To
maybe
make
that director too. Maybe the director.
Yeah, and Robert.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I think you brought it up the talking over thing. I mean, in some senses it worked, but one of your characters is Popeye. It's not always the best. Not always the best choice cinematically.
Yeah, there might be a few moments things get lost. It doesn't quite work, but for sure.
There are a lot of jokes.
There's a few. I think this is also true of Scooby-Doo, but I think there's a few like little adult humor things that maybe don't
I can look
fit.
at myself naked.
Basically, there's a scene where they take the this is a weird thing. There's actually stuff about this scene I didn't realize, but they take them to the gambling rink, and it's so funny because it's like model horses. It's not real horse track. They're like model horses, and they're gambling. And he goes next door, and he's basically a whorehouse. And Popeye does like a musical number dancing around in a whorehouse. What I didn't realize, apparently, I never knew this as a kid, is that those are like the town wives. Like the town wives have like another second life or something going on. They got something going on. Like those aren't just random horrors. So there's some backstory there that I don't quite know. And that he kind of snuck some weird stuff like that into the movie.
Maybe we'll get that prequel, that Popeye prequel.
Maybe there's some kind of weirder things in there that maybe stick out a little bit.
Yeah, but also like on Scooby-Doo, I just want to touch the fact that like one thing I'll point to when I talk about the scene, like the scenery and the set design of that movie, it's the scene where they're looking around that ride. I think it's what it was. Yeah. But it's where they discover like the alien, not the alien, the monster transport, whatever the hell it is. I don't care. Yeah. But yeah, like at that point, like usually like it's actors chewing the scenery. This scenery is devouring these actors. Like that's that's one of the points where like okay, there's a little too much going on in this set.
Yeah. All right. Well, RJ, anything you want to say about Popeye? Any like more critical thoughts that you have?
Just a weak third act.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's really it.
There's a whole thing. There's a whole story about the octopus, by the way. Like they ran out of money, and they had to like
clearly tell they ran out of money.
They just totally ran out of money, and basically the last like two big scenes of that movie were just they ran out of money. They had to finish shooting, and they just rushed those last like couple big scenes in the movie.
It's like they tried to do the Jaws effect, but they realized they didn't even have like Jaws money to begin with.
Yeah,
so it's like just do something. I don't care.
Because it also came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden, it's like, wait, now there's an octopus. Like, I thought we were fighting Pluto. There's an octopus.
Yeah,
that reminds me of Batman v Superman, where it's just like Batman's like if Batman and Superman are fighting. Oh look, a CGI monster. Like, what? Where did this come from?
Hey, at least they set that up a little bit. This was just, hey, there's an octopus.
And then, like I said, character-wise, like I said, I found it a little off-putting that Olive Oyl was some spoiled brat. Like I never got that from the cartoon, so it was like. What?
I believe that is something that was kind of there in the comic strips because I didn't really say this, but this movie really is more from the original comic strips of Popeye more than the cartoons. Right. So in the comic strips, it was more about the townsfolk. It was more
Olive Oyl.
It was more of the interactions. So I think they're drawing from some of that. But yeah, I think they just kind of decided they wanted to go that direction with her character and make it like Popeye's an origin story of him becoming this hero. I think it's an origin story of Olive going from just being the spoiled child who's like
also Shelley Duvall. Shelley Duvall's trying really hard to get me not to like this movie.
But yeah, I think it's you see her develop and become more of a person that we can like and kind of a mother figure later on in the movie. I think it's an arc, but yeah, it's not something we knew from the cartoons.
By the way, because I want to get this on camera, Jeremy, said you've never seen Scooby-Doo 2, right?
No.
I want you to look at your phone right now. I sent you something.
Oh, okay.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. Keep talking, guys. I gotta look at this.
Oh god, I have a feeling I know what you just
Oh,
said.
you know exactly what I sent him.
Is it the latex outfit?
Well, I will be watching this movie today. That would be the Linda Cardellini cat.
Cardellini is the orange costume, but they decided to put her in the second movie.
Which I'll tell you right now, that
be
just like
enjoying
the miniskirt in the first movie, that just comes out of nowhere.
But that scene when she's in it is freaking hilarious because she's trying
You know what, guys?
trying to be sexy like for Seth Green.
But she's dressed like a sexy traffic cone.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just finish up your thoughts real quick, RJ. I'm gonna be right back. There's something I gotta do. Go ahead.
Leave your phone, sir. How dare you? You have a family. That's so gross. No, he doesn't know I said that. But no, I mean, like I said, like Scooby-Doo, besides the animation, like there's just really nothing I could say negative about it. Like
that Velma romance, that like she had a romance with the guy that she shared a sentence with, that works for you.
It was whatever. Like I said, like to me, like that was just a real quick thing because it was like it was trying to give them. Dang, Jeremy.
Wow.
What?
No, I made a dirty joke when you left, so you came back really. So I was like, oh, never mind. I told you to leave your phone.
Just
when
to
you were
interrupt,
like,
I just to interrupt real quick, I got to get these guys on camera. So here's the
there it is.
Popeye. Got him when I was you can see the tattoo and everything. I got him when I was 7, and then this one I've actually had from I was either 3 or 4. So I just wanted to get these guys on camera.
Damn.
Yeah, I've had this
basically
my entire life. Yeah.
Man, dude, I wish I still had him because I had the same for Scooby-Doo. I had a little doll of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
I had the mug. No joke. I had the like kid size, like the same size as me, like Scooby-Doo sleeping buddy. Like it was Scooby-Doo in pajamas, and it was like an old version of like a boyfriend pillow. Like it was something for me to like cuddle with when I slept. Like my size. I kept that thing for years. And
I had a life-size Michelangelo Ninja Turtle, by the way, that I would literally lay on.
Growing up, I did have a Scooby-Doo plush. I had Scooby-Doo bed sheets, and before I was tall enough to ride the roller coaster at Six Flags, one of my favorite rides at Six Flags was the Scooby-Doo like haunted house shoot 'em up.
The Scooby-Doo shooting game. Hell yeah, dude! When that ride came out, man, that was the shit. I love playing that game. That's how you decide who buys lunch when you go to Six Flags with your friends. You go on the Scooby-Doo ride. Lowest score buys lunch. That's what you do.
I'm gonna do that next time. Thank you for the advice.
Dude, it's like I said, it's a great way. Like loser buys lunch. No. Oh man.
Anything else there, RJ?
I also God, what was the other thing Scooby-Doo wise? Like I think I had that movie. I don't know what happened to it. I think I just lost it in the like million times I moved.
Yeah.
Monsters Unleashed killed it for me. And to me, that movie does not exist. There's only one Scooby-Doo movie.
Oh, it exists for me now. I got a certain picture.
but to that movie's credit, it did give us it was one of James Gunn's earlier features.
And it did do more of the revisiting of old Scooby villains. It brought a lot of classic Scooby villains to life. Okay. That you got.
Well, no, James Gunn wrote them both. He wrote the first and second.
Yeah, he wrote them both. Yeah.
And then
So is this point where we decide who wins?
Oh, I just got to give my thoughts real fast.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, like I said, look, it's not a great movie, Scooby-Doo. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a fantastic movie. I just think if you want a fun movie from the early 2000s that I think, it's a fun Scooby. It's got some actors doing some good performances, having fun with this. I think, some of the Sugar Ray, that's fine, but I think there's a lot of other like pop culture stuff in the movie that just really dates it pretty badly. But it's not a movie going to be like, I've got to see this as a great film. It's a movie like, hey, I want to unwind and watch something kind of frothy and fun. And I liked Scooby-Doo when I was a kid, so I'll throw this movie on. And I think it's enjoyable on that level. But, it's Raja Gosnell. He's no Robert Altman. He's just kind of a director for hire. He was just kind of, let's throw something together, Scooby-Doo, and throw some stuff in there and get a lot of sight gags.
I know. Go see Show Dogs.
Show Dogs. Did he do that?
That's his new movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, and then it's like, it's kind of like, the guy did Home Alone 3. If you like that kind of thing, this is the kind of movies he makes, and for better or worse. So I can't take this movie apart like Chance and talk about all the stuff that doesn't work. It's just like, it is what this movie is what it is. And it's like,
Exactly.
you enjoy it, you might
Sure.
cringe, but whatever. That's about all I can say on it. Yeah, but for me, it gave us Matthew Lillard and Lou Cardellini's performances, and I think that brings some value to it. So, all right, now we're going to get into the final verdict. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to give our final thoughts of what of these two movies do we think really is the one that a viewer should take away? What's the more meaningful movie, the movie that really should be seen and should be talked about? And I think I'll also say it kind of represents its time period. And this isn't just like, I think one of these two movies is way more mired in its time period. Like, you get a lot of references from that time, but that's not necessarily what I mean. Like it represents kind of the mood, the filmmaking, what that time period had to offer in terms of what kind of movies came from that time. So it's like, what movie better represents that time in filmmaking? It might it might have some trendy stuff that might be valuable too. It might kind of tell you what it was like to be around then. That might be valuable too, but that isn't the only criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our guest, the Chance. Which of these two movies do you think is the one that people should take away? Yeah, I mean, it may or may not be the one you nominated, but which one do you think is the movie people should check out and that you think really speaks well of its time period?
Well, you see, I was just ready and willing to hand the win to Popeye, but then you did that preface it. It's just like, what movie better represents the time period it was made in? And going off of that criteria, I begrudgingly got to give this to Scooby-Doo. Really? Yes, because here's why. Because Popeye, in a sense, is like super. It's timeless in the way like it could have been made. Well, I mean now, if you made it, would have been like a CGI giant shark. But as far as an age representation,
yeah, it is timeless.
I don't think Popeye very well represents the age. It represents an era of filmmaking, but just not the age. It's more of a 70s movie that was technically made in 1980. But Scooby-Doo, man, that is just so 2000s. From the Sugar Ray.
In a good way, though.
Kind of. I mean, a little bit. It's so dangerous from the CG to I think it's Pam Anderson cameo to the fact that Rowan Atkinson's in it to the music, the way people are talking. I think I said Sugar Ray. To Sugar Ray, like that movie is just so 2000s. So if you want a movie, if you want to put a movie in a time capsule between these two to better represent the decade that it came out in, it's got to be Scooby-Doo.
All right, so that's one vote for Scooby-Doo. I'm going to go ahead and go next here. Scooby-Doo is mired in its time period, and it's got a lot of references, and it definitely tells you what movies were like then and what it was like to kind of see movies then. But I think I would say Josie and the Pussycats represents it better. Like, that's a movie that's a little sharper.
We're not talking about Josie and the Pussycats. That's a different story.
We'll do it on another episode. But I just think there are other movies that do it better, that give you that time period, that have, like Chance said earlier, a satirical edge. Like, there are movies that have a little bit of satire, a little bit of intelligence to them. And I think Scooby-Doo, though it's a fun movie, I think I could point to movies from that time that better are kind of fun, family comedy sort of movies from that time period. And just because something is trendy doesn't mean that it's the best representation of that time, like I was saying. So Popeye is pretty timeless, but I do think it's also of a piece with a lot of movies like the Superman 2 also came out in 1980. I think there's a lot of movies in the 80s going forward to the Spielberg movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and all these movies. They're kind of timeless, but it was, these great filmmakers were making movies kind of for kids and kind of for families, cartoon characters, superheroes, things like that. They were making that on bigger scales, and I think that is a big part of what the 80s was. The 80s was, instead of telling stories about just normal everyday people, we're telling stories about cartoon characters and superheroes and larger than life things and guys with proton packs on their back fighting ghosts. Like, we're telling these kind of stories, but we're taking it seriously. We're making it like a big scale thing that's fun, that's going to resonate with people for years and years and years. And I think Popeye was one of the first waves of that. Like, they took it seriously. They told a story on a scale that's really cool with wonderful sets and great performances, and it's funny, and I think it's got the kind of humor that you would see going forward in a lot of 80s movies. And though, yeah, it's a little timeless and it's not trendy and mired in 80s culture like Scooby-Doo is, I think it really is a better representation of the movies that we would go on to get throughout that decade in the best sense, in terms of like filmmakers like Spielberg and Ivan Reitman and all Robert Zemeckis, all these guys, like all great stuff that he's brought us. Popeye was right there at the beginning of it. So I really love this movie. I really hope people see it. If you have a choice between those two movies, this is the one. I really believe it is. So that's my pick, and nothing against Scooby-Doo. Like I said, it's a fun movie, but it's not, there are better movies, and Popeye is a better movie. So that's my choice. So it all comes down to RJ here. My heart's sinking. Yeah. Can you? If you want to. Let's let RJ see what RJ says, and then Chance can make his final verdict. He's flip-flopping on us. But RJ, it's in your court. You know, whatever you say there, buddy.
This is hard. This is really hard.
Seriously?
Yeah, he loves Scooby-Doo.
Not since we battled Karate Kid, and was it Surf Ninja or Three Ninjas Kick Back?
That actually wasn't hard. Yeah, that wasn't hard for RJ.
Yeah, that wasn't hard. That actually was not hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Popeye has that, like, I basically agree with both of you in your main points, where like Popeye was one of those first movies that we can really find where we took something cartoonish,
yeah,
and took it seriously and gave a true adaptation of a source material, and was able to make it work regardless of what people think. If you actually watch the old Popeye and then watch this movie, they paid it the best homage they could. Like I think they nailed it. They knocked it out of the park with how well they adapted that to screen. Especially, I didn't get to talk about this earlier. For me, I think the standout of that movie is the slapstick.
Yeah.
That could have been so bad. And for some people it is, but it works so well in that world. Those slapstick performers deserve an applause on their own. All the ensemble cast whose job was to do the slapstick did an amazing job of bringing that to a live action screen. Because we've seen other live action try to do slapstick and it just does not work. It looks so overdone. But in this movie, they made it work. But then you go to Scooby-Doo and talk about what Chance said. This speaks to its time. Not only where they based this movie is a pure representation of the early 2000s when it comes to the CGI. This was the beginning of it. This was the beginning of, look what we can do now with movies. Look what we can bring to the screen. We don't have to worry about some weird, like, puppet animatronical dog to try to bring Scooby-Doo to life. We can bring him to life with computers. And not completely convincing, but once again, this was the young age of that, and that's why it represents it so well. This is the start of that. And another thing is, for me, what people criticize the 2000s and 2010 so much for is taking something old and trying to make it new. And this is one of the first examples of that. They took something from the 60s and made it new. This was near the start of that trend. And to me, that also speaks to the time it came out. This was the start of that trend of taking something super old from TV or movies and remaking it for today. And as much as I would recommend people to see Popeye first, Scooby-Doo takes my vote. Because of how much more it speaks to its time, not only in the film itself, but what that film represents, what they did with it represents.
Yeah, totally fair. I want to come back to you one more time, Chance. You're waffling.
I should have about Popeye wins.
Popeye wins. Okay. All right. Well, that was really anticlimactic. So I guess Popeye won, even though I really thought it was going the other way. But hey, it doesn't really matter, guys. We like RJ and I love both these movies. Chance has opinions on both movies. I don't know where he's standing. He's all over the place. But in any case,
I like Popeye.
Yeah, I think that, you should check both these movies out, honestly. I like them both. RJ likes them both. And it's always fun to go back to the movies that we saw when we were a kid and revisit them. So that's going to bring us to the end here. Tentatively, Popeye wins today, but we'll put a poll up in the page and you guys can vote and give us your thoughts on it. So just to tease our next episode, the one that we had been planning to do was our big blowout 1990s Ninja Turtles versus 1995's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It was going to be a 90s versus 90s, two franchises battling, and we're going to try to get that back on track for next week. So we'll keep you guys updated with the details. That's our plan. So check us out. I'm Jeremy the Adam Adams. You can check me out, Jeremy Paul Adams on Facebook, Jeremy Paul Adams on YouTube, and everything that we do at Full Metal Media, and also on the Worldwide Movie Games Network, where there's live trivia and all kinds of awesome things for you guys to watch. RJ, any plugs, anything you have to say?
You guys can always find me here on Nostalgia Goggles, where Ninja Turtles will go down. It will go down. No, that's going to be another one where it's two movies I love, so no matter what, I win. Yeah. These are two movies I absolutely adore. But you can find me here. You can find me on Full Metal Media. You can find me in Multiplex Entertainment and WWMG competing in this season. And you can find me hosting at least one more episode of FN5 like I teased yesterday. There will be one more Top Disney 5. We are going to take the 3 lists that we made, and we are going to make a definitive top 5 out of those 3 lists that we have made. Jeremy and I will be picking time list, and that's going to be fun. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And
Chance, anything you have to plug here?
Yeah, I mean, Full Metal Media. You can check. I'm usually the host of Full Metal 5, but RJ is actually taking over for me while I'm on college sabbatical for right now. Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at ChanceWars_91. Find me winning all the belts in both Multiplex and What a Movie Games. And check out my YouTube channel, Chance the Critic, and check out my podcast that I started with my good buddy Russell Howell. Depending on the time this came out, we will either be prepping or we would have already done our 3rd episode, which is our review of Elektra, which is going to be a fun one. So, yeah, check us out. It's on iTunes, Anchor, just about anywhere podcasts are found. So, yeah, Notorious by Chance.
And I would say, yeah, that's a wonderful podcast. They're doing great work. I've been listening, and it's great. So everyone check out the Notorious by Chance podcast. And that'll bring us to the end today. Again, I'm Jeremy the Adam Adams signing off. Be sure to check us out next week and everything else that we do in Full Metal Media. And as always, put those nostalgic goggles back on.